It's 5:30. I would like to call the operations committee meeting to order, please. For December 12th. Can I get approval of the agenda by Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Akers? Everyone approved? Yeah, all in favor? Any opposed? No. Can I get approval of the meeting minutes from November 14th? For Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Smithers. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Reagan is excused from tonight's meeting. Mr. Perkins is attended remotely. First up, we have emergency services, Matt Denner. Who's online for us today? So I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract extension for the fiscal year 19 statewide intergovernmental communications grant with New York State Office of Homeland Security and Office of Emergency Services, moved by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Smithers. Go ahead, Mr. Denner.
This resolution here in front of you guys tonight is an extension for our SIG grant, which are intercommunications. We do have a little bit of fund balance left to that. We're trying to hold out to use that money next year when we start our renovations and hopefully some tower builds.
Any questions for Mr. Denner? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Resolution carries. Next up, I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract extension for the fiscal 21 public safety answering points grant with New York State Office of Homeland Security and the Office of Emergency Services, moved by Mr. Lightfoot, seconded by Mr. Smithers. Mr. Denner, go ahead.
This last resolution, excuse me, I have in front of you, is another grant extension. This one is our PSAP grant. We get it yearly. We weren't able to spend it all. The state gave it to us in late August. So the state realized that it wasn't enough time for all the counties to use up the money. So they authorized an extension. So I'm asking the chair to authorize an extension for this grant also tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Denner? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, so carries. Thank you, Mr. Denner.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the Board of Elections, Jenny Bacon and Tom Nichols. And we have, Tom, I can't hear you. Tom, you're still muted.
I'm here.
He's here too, but muted.
Our first,
Hold on, I'll read it and he can maybe figure out the muting in a second. So we have a resolution authorizing chair to sign a contract with the NTS Data Services for voter registration, signature digitalization, full document imaging, election reporting and interface messaging system, maintenance and support agreement for the Board of Elections, moved by Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Finish. Go ahead, whoever has audio.
this resolution is for our system that we use for all of our voter registration database. We were again doing a 1-year contract rather than a longer contract because we haven't been completely satisfied. We do anticipate more vendors being available for this service.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. Next up, I have a resolution modifying the 2022 budget for the Board of Elections for poll worker training / voter education, moved by Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Akers. Go ahead, Jen.
This resolution is just placing the money into our budget. We've already got the grant extension signed, but we didn't on that resolution put the money into our budget.
Any questions? Anybody? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you, Jenny and Tom. Tom, I hope your audio gets better. All right, next up, we have Johnny Dorton. I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with the Standard Life Insurance Company of New York for group life insurance coverage, moved by Mr. Smithers, seconded by Mr. Forsythe.
Hi, so St. Lawrence County currently has a contract with the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America to provide group life insurance coverage for eligible active employees and retirees as well as dependents. The current contract will expire February 1st, 2023, and the terms of the new contract would represent an increase in monthly premiums of approximately 9.4% compared to the 2022 rates. St. Lawrence County Benefit Consultants firm has solicited various quotes from other insurance carriers on our behalf. The lowest cost proposal was received by the Standard Life Insurance Company of New York and represented a decrease in monthly premiums of approximately 7.3% compared to 2022 current rates. The Standard Life Insurance Company will provide a 3-year rate guarantee of 79 cents per 1,000 per month for active employees and retirees, and $2.50 per month for dependent coverage. The cost savings is projected to be approximately $790 per month for the term of the contract. And I'm requesting that the Board of Legislators authorize the chair to sign the contract with for life insurance coverage from February 1st, 2023 through January 31st, 2020.
Any questions from Mr. Dorton? Mr. Smith?
Jenny, were the services and benefits the same between the quotes?
Exactly.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, Mr. Forsythe, do you want to there or you want to be here?
I can do it either way.
Okay. I have a resolution requesting New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation include all bodies of water in the septic system replacement program for St. Lawrence County, moved by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Burke. Mr. Forsythe, you want to talk to me?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I brought this up last month. The program started the original year, covered Black Lake, portions of the St. Lawrence River. And now we're into the second year, half the money has been spent, and the third year has been appropriated. From what I read, it's a 5-year, Jason, I believe, or a 5-year plan. And what I just encourage everybody, I believe everyone here has bodies of water located in their areas. And usually the bodies of water are the most prime real estate in those areas. So I would just encourage everyone to support this. We are the largest watershed, I believe, in the state of New York. And if they could expand this to all the territories for the remaining 3 years or 2.5 years that we have left, I think the timing is good because we have the senators elect and assembly elect. Maybe it'll give them something on their plate to start with. And I just hope everyone supports it. But yeah, I've gotten numerous calls from people in my area, and I'm sure there's other areas that are as affected as ours. And I just encourage you to support it.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Forsythe? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. Thank you. Similarly, I have a resolution acting upon policies and recommendations made by the St. Lawrence County Advisory Boards, Committees, and Councils, moved by Mr. Arquette, seconded by Mr. Smithers. Ms. Terminelli, this is yours. I'll let you speak to it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This resolution is being brought forward tonight. We have 32 advisory boards, committees, and councils that were created by the Board of Legislators or possibly the Board of Supervisors for many of them. And over the past 4 years that I've served on the board, I know that we oftentimes turn to these groups because of their expertise to kind of provide us with some guidance and information when we're considering issues or things that might be kind of hot topics or concerns that we have that deal with the county. And so I'm asking that as a board, that when we employ these, not employ, but when we ask these groups to provide us with some research-based analysis or information, or to make recommendations, or to create a stance on a topic that we've highlighted for them, that we would consider their recommendations when we move forward. Not that we're bound by them, but that we would consider them as committees, advisories, councils that have been created by us, that we honor their work as we move forward and make decisions.
Any questions? Mr. Akins?
So I think this goes back to at least what the EMC about your position on nuclear policies, or whether they were in favor of it or not. And I was more interested in actually finding out about what the EMC thought about it, and the use of actual memberships. I think advisory boards are just that. They're there to provide advice when asked. This is the legislative body here. The legislative body is the only one that creates policies. In no way do I see that presentation on nuclear energy would come up, that we would have a policy from that position. My interest in actually asking about nuclear energy was because of all the farmland that's being taken up here in St. Lawrence County and across New York State, based on the policies coming out of Albany about being energy, renewable energy by the year 2050. Which is unlikely to happen, not physically feasible at this time. So that was the reason for that, was to find out, like, we are losing all this farmland, which was producing food and fiber for the population, which is going to be as important, if not more important, than actually being dependent on renewables instead of fossil fuels. It was just a question actually to determine what the makeup of the board of the EMC would decide on that. And I think what you saw was, it was a very thorough report, but it was very neutral in its stance also. That's what I was kind of looking for, was later on a follow-up. Nicole, to that would be, what is your feeling about solar and this loss of tillable ground for food production to the source of energy? You know, right now, I don't know about today, but we're letting water run over the dam in Messina, because so much energy is coming online from either the wind turbines or the additional solar.
Mr. Foot was next, and then Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I view this resolution slightly differently than I think my colleague, Mr. Akers, although there are certain opinions given by advisory boards that I don't agree with, but I don't think that that's what you were looking for. Most of these advisory boards, if not all of them, are on a volunteer basis. I think what this resolution does, it recognizes the importance of their work, the fact that they're doing it on a voluntary basis, and you, as you said, that we're not bound in any way by the decisions that some or the advice that were given. So I'll be supporting this resolution in recognition of the help that we're given by all of these boards that we created at one point.
Mr. Forsythe?
I just thought it was in place already. I remember a few years fire advisory board with the fireworks. Remember the fireworks, and they were adamantly opposed to the fireworks, and we weren't in favor of that. So I just thought it was already in place. If this codifies it, I have no issue with it, but thought it was in place.
Anyone else? Mr. Burke?
It looks to me like the intent of the resolution should provide feedback to people that are making recommendations one way or another. I don't think it obliged us to do anything other than to acknowledge the fact that they made a recommendation, and to tell them, I mean, we might even tell them that we're inconclusive ourselves, but at least it gives them some feedback.
Mr. Lightfoot?
I think that feedback should come from the board representative to these boards and committees that we've established. All of those major boards do have a board member appointed to attend those meetings, and it's supposed to be a two-way pipeline. At least that's the way I handle it with mine. And, but, you know, we get what their thoughts are, they get what our thoughts are. And ultimately, it is up to the board to make a decision, you know, one way or the other. But certainly, you know, looking back over the years, we've asked for a lot of input from a lot of the different boards, fire service, environmental, on and on. And I think that the relationship that we have with these boards is pretty good. If that back and forth, that two-way pipeline isn't working, then I think we've got a little bit of a problem that needs to be addressed. But I think if we give and we get, that's what it's all about.
Anyone else? Mr. Manelli?
Thank you. If I could just close out by saying that that was the purpose of the last be it further resolved, is that that communication would go through the liaison or the appointee to the board or to the committee, excuse me. And I think that surely this did come out of conversations that I had with the EMC after we were asked, or the Environmental Management Council was asked, but it's representative of the hard work that these volunteer organizations, these groups do on our behalf, and that when we ask them to provide us with some information or to guide us, that they are willing. And I just, more than anything, want to validate and make them realize how valuable they are to us. It's hard enough to get people to volunteer, to be involved, but for sure, if it seems a bit thankless, then it might be even more of a challenge. So we do rely on them to provide information, and then we go from there with our decision-making process.
Mr. Denisha had his hand up. Do you have a?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm surprised because many of the standing committees that we have make recommendations. Recommendations that we have moved on. You know, think about the Environmental Management Council. You know, one of the in a subset of the Environmental Management Council was the Ash Borer, Emerald Ash Borer Committee, and you know, they made a recommendation. To them, they made a recommendation. They didn't have any money to address it. However, we did use since then we've designated ARPA funds to take care of the Emerald Ash Borer infected trees along County Raceway, which was a direct, request, if you will, from the Environmental Management Council. I think about the fireworks from the Fire Advisory Board, the Ag and Environmental Protection Board. You know, we have passed resolutions that have come directly from the groups. But I guess perhaps I'm missing something, but I think we've already got a process in place that addresses
Mr. Akers?
Yeah, so I'll just go back to, I think, what this, I think that the EMC put a lot of work into this, and I'm thankful they did spend a lot of time on it. And for me, you know, I have friends that are climate change activists. Ginger Story Welch, a good friend of mine. And when I talk to her about nuclear energy, it's a big fat zero. So when I tell her that, I can't take her seriously unless you're considering nuclear energy as part of this solution. Nuclear energy is the most energy dense. It is renewable. There are costs to create, as we're finding out, there are costs to policies that we're doing right now for higher food prices, higher food and fuel, fertilizer and whatnot. So I think, you know, you spend a lot of time on it and you're looking almost for like validation. And the validation is not what our advisory boards are set up to do. If we ask for an opinion on something, and Dave made a good example, the fire advisory board didn't want fireworks being sold here. So that's the recommendation. It was the expectation that we validate it or not. In this case, we created a policy in the opposite there. But that was the intention. And I didn't get that answer. from the process. And then like again, the land is being utilized for solar right here versus food. So I'm not in favor of the resolution. I think the boards are advisory boards. And there shouldn't be any expectation that the opinions that they give receive automatic approval by this board and become policy.
Anyone else? Oh, Rick, okay, sorry.
Thank you. I think we're getting a little sideways on this. From what I see, it's just letting the committees know whether we accept or decline the recommendations. It's not saying anything else except that we just advise them of what we have done. That's the way I'm reading it, but I'd like to call a question.
Right. All in favor of calling the question? All right, so all in favor, do you want to roll call? So all in favor? Any opposed?
No.
Next up, we have the vacancy review committee with Brooke.
So the vacancy review committee met on December 6th. We had 2 legislators join us in those discussions. And there were 5 departments reviewed. On this meeting for operations, you'll see 1 department. In the next meeting at services, you'll review 2 additional departments, and there'll be 2 on finance this month. So at the beginning of December, as I'd like to keep you informed of vacant positions, there were 47 positions vacant, not counting seasonal positions that aren't intended to be filled at this time, which is approximately 6% of our workforce. We are working right now under an 87.76 immediate fill rate. And then our 30-day, 60-day, and 90-day fills are each at 2.04%. So 1 position's been held in each of those categories. And a 6% held, you'll remember the social services positions we held with regard to Medicaid, that amounts to 6% of those so far. And the total position since September, which is really our reset of the year, is 49 so far. If there's no questions, our only department on operations is probation. Tim?
So this vacancy is due to a retirement, or was resigned, the person resigned. She'd been with us for just a little over a year. She ended up going back to her previous employment. This is in our governor office, so this is just a little shorthanded in governor. There's only 3 employees in that office right now. I am sending 2 employees on their days off. One of them's on his day off. The other 2 days are covered by leaving their normal job position. So it kind of making things tough in our Canton office and our governor office. I did want to bring to light that since about August of 2021, we have reduced staff in the probation department by 5. There's been 3 probation assistant positions that we let go, and there's been 2 retirements of probation officers that we are down 5 since August of 2020.
Mr. Forsythe.
So how does the number of people they're taking care of, how does that compare?
Caseloads have gone up. They've been going up since this new year. We've been averaging about anywhere from 1.5 to about 5% each month since 2019. The state compares it from 2019 on. So caseloads have been going up with the cutting the probation assistant positions. Those pretrial cases did go to the probation officers. So that did raise 9 employees have taken over the pretrial cases. They average probably about 5 each. So it has raised their case. So we're in the most people are in the 40s, except the specialized caseloads are still, we're at 35 where I want.
Does the state, like with other agencies, has recommendations for number in caseload? Do they have?
They won't commit to giving us numbers. I used to say I was comfortable around 50, 55. I just found out our violation rate is the highest in the state. St. Lawrence County is at 61% of our cases have been violated. That's shocking to me that we're that high. Closest county to us is at 44%. We may attribute it all to the drug use. If it's not using drugs, it's healing for the drugs. That's not the reason you violated it. It's somehow related to drug use. I just tested somebody before I came here about quarter after quarter, and they tested positive. It's just, they're not using just one thing, they're using everything.
All right,
Mr. Akers is next.
I walked in with that individual, talking about the weather. Yeah. How will you go about filling this position, Tim? Was it some service tests or existing or?
So we have an existing list until it expires at the end of September, I believe. So we still have a list available. And going to hopefully try to pull just males. Yes, our number of males has declined. But there's somebody that we want and who wants to come to us and is reachable.
And the starting salary would be 45 or so?
You know, 52 for that.
Salary of person leaving is 51.
So I think come 2023, it's around 52.
Oh, that's right. You said they were just there a year. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Purpose next.
Vacancy committee reviewed this and approved it, so I'll support it. But I would be interested in seeing, the caseloads, and if recollection serves me, the state does give guidelines, and I believe it was 200 for the lowest level, 1 to 50 for the intermediate, 5, and I think all of our cases fall from months ago. I don't know what they are now, but all of our cases fall either within that 1 to 50 range, 1 to 50 caseload range, or the 1 to 200. Now, you have a third of your cases in the 1 to 200. And some of them did back then, the 1 to 200, then there was certainly room to have them take on additional cases. So much like ESS does and doing and community services doing, I'd be interested in seeing what the caseloads look like and what classification they fall in. So whether it's the 150 or 1 to 200, we can do that.
I can get you that.
Thank you.
I just want to caution on that though. So that is a recommendation by the state. A lot, so our lowest risk people are, they could technically just send us a postcard once a month. That's all the contact that the state requires. If I have anybody that's reporting that way, my question is, why are they on probation? So I don't allow that. I still want to see everybody physically face to face once a month at least. And depending on the case and their situation, they might still be in a low risk, but we may still have some concerns to where we might even be seeing them 2 times a week. If they owe us money, they might still be in the lowest risk category, but if they owe us restitution or something like that, I still make them come in weekly until they get caught up. So there are state recommendations, like I said, but we don't necessarily follow them to the T, depending on the situation. So, but I can give you the breakdown of that, but just be aware that just because somebody is low risk, I'm obviously not going to let them just send us a postcard to say they're still alive. So.
I think when you start talking about people being seen twice a week, and I think it's certainly good that you exercise caution when it comes to public safety. And I don't think anybody here was trying to tell you how to do that or what manner to do that. But I do believe that if they require a higher level of classification they should be in that, because how else do the metrics work? You know, if they need to be seen twice a week, then they probably don't fall in that 1 to 200 range, or they probably fall in the 150 range. Again, I don't know much about your department, but I do think it's helpful for us to be able to see what the math looks like as it relates to the number of people you have, and the caseloads they have, and the intensity of the caseloads. Thanks.
Yes, on these parole violations that you mentioned, I'm interested in having you explain that a little more. If you have a parole that has more than one violation, are you counting that as more than one violation, or are that 61 different offenders? And is this a recent problem, or is this something that you've experienced in the past?
So our violation rate, like I said, is 61% of the overall cases. So one person may have 2 violations, but we still won't count it. They may have an amended violation. So since we filed the first violation, they may have done more stuff that we need to do inform the court of. So we would do an amended violation. So technically it counts as 2, but it's on the books, it's only one case. 61% is high. I think in the past, we've always been high in our county. We've always held people accountable. But high then was probably high 40s, maybe low 50s. So when I saw 61%, it really caught me off guard. Not that I shouldn't be surprised, because we are violating a lot more people, it seems like, with the drug issues. But 61 is high. That's over half of our cases we have a violation on right now.
So I would assume then that just makes the parole officer's job that much more difficult when that happens.
It's obviously more paperwork and then more court dates, because a lot of times you just need to go to court to get dates or written updates, one or the other. So it's more paperwork. And then obviously we still try to follow the case as close as we can, because obviously if they violated, we keep a close eye on. So we still do the same amount of work, unless obviously they was found and there's a warrant for them. So we'll still try to, we try to track them down. We use social media, we contact family members. So even with the violation pending, it's still at least the same amount of work, if not more. Obviously, you're not seeing them in person a lot of times if they have absconded, or once we file a violation, they're like, well, why should I report now? Trouble anyway. So they might not come in, but we still do our due diligence to make sure they're staying out of trouble.
Mr. Akers.
Oh, this has been covered a lot, but I was just gonna recount, you had mentioned, Tim, that we had 681 cases, probation cases in 2015. By 2019, they had gone to 1/3 of that, 227. Then I believe in June, you had mentioned that we had 99, or we projected that maybe we'd have 200 cases. So obviously it's taken up a little bit from that 200, is that from 1 to
So those
5% per month? Or
those stats were from pretrial cases. That was pretrial.
pretrial?
So right now I predicted we were going to hit about 200 this year. We're probably actually going to hit about 107. So the last 2 or 3 months, I just have pretrial has increased even more. I think we were averaging around 60 cases near July and August when I was talking to you guys about it. As of this morning, we were at 46. I think last month, maybe even the month before, we were in the high 30s. So pretrial cases have continued to increase. We were at 33 last month. We have 17 so far this month. We've only got 3, or I should say, I'm sorry. Last quarter, we had 33 cases. This quarter so far, we have 17 with only 3 weeks left. So I'm only anticipating maybe 25. So that's where I'm getting about 170 cases for the year. So pretrial is definitely decreased. I don't agree with any of it. I mean, I understand the philosophy behind cashless bail. Unfortunately, the execution is was horrendous.
Well, I want to commend you for rejecting the postcard, allowing that to happen. Then I also want to commend you for actually reducing the staff to match up with the caseworks and taking care of the kids' money. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair.
You say it's safe to say that probation really is a substitute for, instead of people going to prison or jail, correct? Would it be safe to say that the reason this has gone up so high, and you're saying that 62% were the highest violation in the state of New York, which I find surprising, but that would have something to do directly with the idea that there were 72,000 inmates in the system here just a few years back. And now we're down to 32,000. And we're wondering why we have this high rate of violent violations. So it's now on the back of the taxpayers who are local.
Definitely different caliber of people we're getting now than we got 5 to 10 years.
Anyone else? On the committee reports, agriculture and farmland protection.
Madam Chair, as a Farmland Protection Board met on Thursday, December 1. And we had a presentation provided to us by Jonathan Geldard, the renewables concerning the Rich Road Solar Energy project. And it was enlightening. There's still a lot of I think we came away with more questions than we did answers. And one of the other things we discussed at the board was it wasn't actually Ag and Farmland Protection Board business, but more so the water. And essentially there's a movement underfoot to realign the soil and water boards throughout the state. And the business directors is going to be presenting a resolution finance committee in opposition to that. And Ag and Farmland Protection Board were all strongly in favor of that resolution. And the next meeting is February 2nd, 2023 at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Alternative to incarceration board, Mr. Burke.
There's nothing new.
Thank you. Board of Trustees for Supreme Court Library, Ms. Yak.
Nothing to report.
Emergency Medical Advisory Board was supposed to meet the 22nd. At the last minute, they changed it to the 29th. So I was not there in person. I got the rundown later on. We're gonna say we'll discuss more later about that. We'll be discussing that a bit later. But the next meeting is December 27th at 6 p.m. So Environmental Management Council, Mr. Manila.
So we met last on November 16th. We did not have a presenter at that meeting. They are putting an ad hoc committee together to review the bylaws and see if any adjustments need to be made to those. Also going through a similar process to what they went through in 2013, where they're kind of looking at that revisioning questionnaire, you know, what are people's goals, what background and knowledge do they have. We had discussion about the Talking Wings, which is they host the Rights of Nature Symposium. And we were informed about the town of Potsdam that passed a resolution, unanimously passed a resolution giving rights to the Racket River. We discussed the zigzag sawfly. Slelo Prison's been tracking this. This attacks elms and it has been coming north. There have been cases found in Brazier, the Lost Nation Forest, and Wilson Hill. And it's kind of quite alarming because St. Lawrence County has the highest number of elm trees in New York State. So watching this very closely as it moves into the county. And then our a bulk of our discussion was proposed activities for 2023, just ideas that we put out there. Earth Day in April, the two household hazardous waste in May and September, looking at solar arrays, the pros and cons of those, Oswegatchie River Council, the Black Lake, continuing on with that. No, there was a bunch of them, coordinating and listing environmental resources and organizations in St. Lawrence County that we could post on a website, looking at county climate, bats, wildflower gardens, lots. And then the last one, of course, was what ideas would the Board of Legislature like to bring forward to the MC for us to consider. We do not have a December meeting, so our next meeting is January 18th.
Thank you. Jury board, oh, sorry, fire advisory board, Mr. Denisha.
Madam Chair, our next meeting is December 15th, this Thursday evening. Meeting was scheduled for October 20th was canceled because we did not have a quorum, therefore.
Thank you. Jury board, Mr. Sheridan.
Madam Chairman, the jury board met on November 29th. The Honorable Mary Farley was there. Greg Story, Commissioner of Jurors, Melissa Sweet was there. Myself. Deputy Commissioner Lindsay Cota was also at the meeting. The discussion was mainly focused on the 2022 calendar of year statistics that involved the criminal, civil, grand jury, and town court statistics. If anyone's interested in seeing that report, it's rather lengthy. Let me know. I'll get you a copy of that. The report will show that the courts are back to pre-pandemic numbers in regards to the number of jury trials scheduled and jurors summoned. The grand jury seems to be running smoothly. Grand jury meets every Thursday in room 226. February 22nd, the grand jury was able to return to room 226. The 6-foot social distancing was reduced to 3 feet, so they're back to where they usually are. Ms. Sweet asked the board to reappoint her as Commissioner of Jurors as her 4-year term is up at the end of this month. And she informed the board that it's her intention to retire in April 2023. And she introduced Deputy Commissioner Lindsay Cota, whom she has the utmost confidence in, and is hoping that after the training that she's receiving and has received, that she on the operational aspect of the office, that she's very well qualified to replace her. So she fully supports Lindsay Cota's intention to succeed her as Commissioner of Jurors. And that'll be in April. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Sheridan? Seeing none, we will go on to the planning board and Mr. Perry.
Planning board met Thursday, December 8th. Basically, we only had one full review to look at. It was the town of Waddington or 19 lot subdivision on the Iroquois Dam Road. There's a number of questions we sent back for additional information. And the planning and zoning basic meeting that was held for an hour to start the meeting off was of real value to, I think, some of our new members and to me, even as a small contractor, reminding us of things that have to be done. And I think it was very important for the board members and myself. And the other one that came in at the last minute was a fish and bait shop on Maple Street. You can see it at the corner of Maple and George Street. If anybody's familiar, if you come across the bridge downtown, head north Main, it's your first left, and as you go out, Maple Street is actually the road to the hospital. So there's a number of questions that we were asking on traffic and parking, especially if someone's got a big boat stopping to get some bait. So basically, those were the two things that we dealt with, as well as the hour training session.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Fay? Seeing none, we will go on to the broadband ad hoc committee with Ms. Haggard.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. chairperson. I have some slides. Dylan, do you have those? Okay. The Federal Communications Commission has released a national broadband map. And this is a map that is going to be used to distribute the federal funds that were allocated in the infrastructure bill, the federal infrastructure bill. Now, individual people can go on the FCC's website and put in their address or their zip code or whatever, and determine whether they have broadband or not. And this will roll up into, I guess, the biggest map in the world of where broadband exists and where it doesn't, which we've been working on for a long time. We're also submitting a bulk challenge, which is coming through DANK and St. Lawrence County Planning. So there will be different iterations of this map as they pull in the information. And I don't know exactly what the dates are, but like in January or the beginning of February, they'll take the look at the initial number. And of course, we want as many people as possible to get on the website and submit their information, because that will bring us money through Connect All, which is New York State's program, to provide better service or service at all to some people. So that bill, as you know, is $42.45 billion. And that is going to be the basic information they'll use to determine how much we'll get. We have come up against an issue with special money and Connect All, in that they are not they're not going to converge in terms of time. So we've talked about a new possible RFP initiative where we would look at certain areas, and Lewis County did something like this, certain sections of the county, and ask for the ISPs, or the internet service providers, to give us proposals on these lots that it's approximately 411 houses. So that could be a possibility that we could have bids and then have it in a competitive manner between providers, and definitely will be based on where they have service now or where they have an interest. Now, we're revising our own maps, and every time I give this update, last time we're down to 1,518 addresses, and that's expected to drop down to 1,200 eventually. Many times we've brought up the Affordable Connectivity Program, and planning is working on an outreach program for that. It's 30% undersubscribed, and it provides $30 a month discount to eligible households. All the providers in St. Lawrence County participate, and cards and flyers are being put in public facing offices, and possibly some paid advertising, which would really bring people in and get people to use this. It's been highlighted on the county's website. Okay, so the discussion with ISPs has also identified challenges in infrastructure build out. In other words, in some areas where people often say, well, there's a line that goes right in front of my house. That may not be the kind of line that can be extended to another house. In some cases, they're not using fiber, they're using coaxial cable. So that is an issue that has come up, and we're taking a look at that. There are a lot of moving parts on this project. The pole agreements needed to hang the fiber, and it's time consuming and engineering requirements. Not all networks, as I mentioned, are robust enough to simply be extended down the road with upgrades. And furthermore, this is why we're kind of excited about this RFP program with these different lots, is that, you know, with private companies, they have decided where to build that's cost effective. But if we can create a situation where we're investing and they're investing, we may have more interest, because we have not had tons of people pounding our door down to come and provide internet service here. They're they need 10 subscribers per mile to cover the costs of operating. I also wanted to address there are studies being done for wireless that I know Mr. Akers is very interested in. And those studies require quite a bit of information about terrain and that kind of thing, testing. So that's underway, and we get the information from that. I mentioned that there were 411 homes that we were looking at in these 14 lots that had been divided up. So our last meeting was on November 30th. We're meeting again on the 4th of January, since there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And I hope that I'll be able to give the ARPA committee some idea of how the timeline with this ISP or this RFP and Connect All are not going to be the same. We may be 2 or 3 years down the line getting Connect All. So it's very important that we have committed, if I'm not mistaken, by 2024, the ARPA funds, is it 2024, Mr. Akers? It's got to be used before that, and this would be a possibility for that. And I'd be very happy to answer any questions I can.
Any questions? Any questions from Mrs. Dagger? Mr. Sheridan?
The meetings that you're talking about on January 4th, they're open to the public to come?
Yes, we've never had anybody. Well, I guess we have, but certainly they're usually on Zoom, but they would be available to the public.
Where are those?
Well, they're on Zoom.
They're on Zoom. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good.
But we would welcome anyone they're stakeholders, so that's fine.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Mr. Burke?
On the site, I was looking, as you were speaking, Mark. They list T-Mobile home internet, 5G service at 182 megabytes, I think it's megabytes per second. I didn't know that we had 5G available here. I mean, I know we have 5G, but I didn't know that it was suitable for internet. It would be interesting knowing if that is really a viable option, because it doesn't require cable.
Absolutely, and I think that is something that has to be looked at, and as I've mentioned many times in the past, Connect All money is contingent on it being fiber. So unfortunately, we don't have any parameters yet on whether it's going to require matching funds or whether these are going to be things that the ISPs, they've been very reluctant to participate in the USDA grant program because it's cumbersome and requires a lot of reporting. But there's very little to zero information about all at this point. And so it makes it a little tough to know how to proceed. And as things go with 3 or 4 iterations of the FCC maps. And it takes from the time we have a contract until somebody has internet, it takes almost 2 years. So in order to get something going and not wait on the Connect All program, this would be a good way to start getting service to some of the people that have waited a long time. Anybody else?
Thank
Thank you. Oh,
you. Seeing none, we'll go on to old and new business. Any old business? Seeing none, how about new business? Seeing none, we will do executive session at the end after services. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Forsythe, second by Mr. Fay. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order the St. Lawrence County Services Committee meeting for Monday, December 12th, 2022. I entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this evening. Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Denisha, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the November 14th services meeting by Ms. Curran. Seconded by Mr. Fay and Mr. Forsythe. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The first presenter will be Jolene Munger from Public Health. And the first resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract amendment with Health Research Incorporated for the New York State Public Health Corps Fellowship Program. Motion by Mr. Burke, seconded by Ms. Curran, Mr. Forsythe. Go ahead, Jolene.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is to sign an amendment. The HRI is doing a no-cost extension through June 30th of 2024. The original grant was supposed to expire on July 31st of 2023. The grant did take a little bit longer than expected for most counties to get up and running, which is why they're giving us longer to spend the funds. Currently, we have 2 fellows hired. We did get permission from the board here to place some fellows with the St. Lawrence Health Initiative. So one is currently with them, and they are working on our community health assessment and community health improvement plan. The other vacant fellow position we have with the health initiative is a business development position. Within our department, we have recently hired an epidemiologist statistician. So we have somebody, an actual PhD person looking at statistics and data for us, which is the first. So we're very excited to see what we actually have for data and how we can use that to help inform our efforts. And then for openings, we have a position that is similar to a senior account clerk to help with our COVID grants. And then we have a public health detailing fellow position available as well. And that's to go out to different practices, provider offices to do help educate them on some public health efforts that they can do in their work. We also are seeking approval to add 2 more fellow positions. I believe we just got approval today from our grantor to add. One would be a communications fellow and another would be to an accreditation fellow to help us through the accreditation process.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The second resolution is authorizing the chair to sign an early intervention provider agreement with the New York State Department of Health. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Sheridan and Mr. Smithers. Go ahead.
So this will allow us to sign, enter into our 5-year provider agreement. Historically, this has been signed by the director of the department, and we are switching it over to the chair. The current agreement ends in March. The state is trying to get us to sign them sooner than later because they are transitioning to a new system. So that's why we're bringing it forward now instead of next year. The new agreement would be for 3 years from April 1st, 2023 through March 31st of 2025.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Jolene. The next is community services with Jay Ulrich. And the first resolution is modifying the 2023 budget for community services for the locum tenens staffing agency contract. Moved by Mr. Burke, seconded by Ms. Giotto. Go ahead, Jay.
Good evening, thank you. So if you recall, we had lost our nurse practitioner for mental health clinic by this year. So subsequent to that, we came to the board of legislators and asked to bring on local tenant prescriber. So it's been already 6 months, or will be 6 months at the end of the year. So we are asking to continue using the locums. have advertised in Persia, which is federal, B, that's federal, social media, Facebook account that we have. What country and what person. So, the cost for this 6-month period is, the cost has been $7,492. We billed out $64,251 and anticipate revenue to the average around 7.
Questions, comments, Ms. Curran?
So this billing, is that part of the problem we're having with billing over there? It hasn't actually been billed out with the new system,
Some of it has not.
so we haven't actually billed. And are we getting towards that 90 days where we kind of can't bill?
Well, we've been billing all along. We've had troubles. We've had quite a few denials, but we did get the majority of the billing in before the 90 days. So once you get a denial, they have time to work.
So what percentage of what you estimate that we will bill actually got billed that we will actually get paid for?
How much out of the 64 are we gonna get paid for? I really can't say.
So I wouldn't list it as a probable $7,000 profit.
Well, I was going on historical averages, that's what.
And if I may,
Yes, you may.
did we get that billing issue taken care of? Are we going to be able to bill now and actually get paid?
Well, sorry,
In general, is billing fixed?
it is not.
Mr. Burke?
Just a question, Jay, how is the locum working out? And is it a 40-hour position or is it?
No, it's 3 days. And, we're looking at, this is assistant, who works on the kitchen side. She has available, she says she has available time. If we could get her waiver reapproved by OMB, she's able to see stable. So we might need less time.
Follow up?
Yes, go ahead.
There are a number, I believe there are a number of other agents. Because they can't recruit full-time positions.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question. Jay. Right now, we are doing without a prescriber. And I'd like to know, with respect to the law, how are we able to do that? How are we fulfilling the needs without having a prescriber on board?
But we've been using a locum.
Right.
So we're asking we got 6-month approval and we were to come back and get an additional time approved. We did not able to hire someone here.
So is the locum that we have now even considering continuing on past her contract time?
She is.
So is it your feeling that we'll be able to either use a locum or lightning will strike and we'll find a qualified person to help her and take that over?
That's the hope.
Okay. So if that doesn't happen, what's the plan?
I mean, I will say that locums is really costing probably twice as much. So I guess that would be a consideration of the board in terms of.
I understand, but if we don't, well, I don't want to put you on the spot. So thank you for Certainly question. Any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The second resolution is modifying the 2022 budget for community services for funding received from the New York State Office of Mental Health in St. Lawrence County as pass-through funding to approved agencies. Motion by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Sheridan and Mr. Fay. Go ahead, Jay.
So this is a resolution that involves two OMH downstream providers. We received 11 amended state aid letters in 2022. So this is kind of the last resolution, hopefully, to bring us where we need to be at year's end for the downstream providers of OMH. And as compared to Oasis, they only had one amendment. So we're asking, this to be approved, so that it can vouchers for critical events.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next resolution is modifying the 2022 budget for community services for computer software, security system, medical malpractice insurance, and furnishings for the opioid treatment clinic. Moved by Mr. Burke, seconded by Mr. Forsythe and Mr. Akers. Go ahead, Jay.
So, this is trying to move money around to cover the costs. One of the costs that was unforeseen has to do with the electronic health record. In terms of the startup date, we are anticipating put in the budget for 3 months of an overlap where we do 2 EHR simultaneously. They did not go live until July, and even after that, there was significant shortfall that we felt we need to continue, having the other electronic health records on backup, as well as trying to clean the slate of any of the invoices to payers that submitted through INA. We also had some security costs. There was a computer that was necessary in Augsburg security system. The main tower was located in Probation. We came to find out that signal was not strong enough for the mental health clinic, which was at the opposite end of the hallway. So we're asking to cover those costs. And the malpractice insurance also went up, and that was not.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. The statistical information, okay, the update.
So this looks a little different. So I'll first start by kind of outlining some of the changes. This is through the new electronic health record. So we split out the no-show rates to separate or to show what the OTP no-show rates are. So last month, the no-show rate for addictions was 14.3. This month, and that was a combination of the OTP and the regular addictions clinic. So this really breaks out the OTP for the no-show rate, and it's 18.7%. And the reason that that's high is because by the reason that they are going through the OTP, they are most unstable patients, and oftentimes that leads to unreliability in terms of making. But the average, if you add the 18 and the 10% and split it by 2, it's almost the exact same as it was. The clinic counselor visit average, this graph used to reflect the graphs immediately below it. And now this graph is reflecting the bar graphs at the bottom of the first page. And the reason being because that's really, these are considered weighted numbers. So it's a more accurate count of productivity. So one thing that is different between these weighted numbers and the ones that we used to do under our system is that in the old system, we just used, like if it was an individual session, just credited the counselor meeting with that individual for 45. If it was a brief, we would credit that individual for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever the code was. So this is really based on kind of real-time durations when they put in the record, in the patient's note, when they started, stop. So the amount of face-to-face billable hours is going to appear less, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're not billing for the same services. Because there's always, there's a flexibility in terms of the time range that you have to meet for different billing codes, services. So the ones that are above it, just by way of explanation, the ones in the middle of the page, those are basically the number of visits that they are seeing within the time frame times the number of hours worked for each for the month and divided by 7 hours. Hope I made that. I hope I explained that. It's a little complicated. So again, the upper right-hand corner has been changed for the weighted visits. On the next page, we included all the prescribers. The first one is for mental health. And the last one is for mental health, two in the middle report. The wait list, we have 53 on the wait list. We still have 41. And for the mental health clinic, then for the addictions clinic, we have 5. The number of individuals, total of services, individuals served. This is now including the OTP clinic. So those numbers are a little higher than previous months. And at the bottom, we have this is discharge. For instance, this month we had 11 admissions, 6 discharges. In terms of our census for the OTP, we're at 8, 49 of those being previously being served by the clinic, and 59 of those coming from either outside or receiving services outside of our clinic, or that were not receiving services.
Questions or comments? Mr. Berger.
Jay, the OTP clinic, is that just methadone or is that methadone Suboxone combination?
It's both. It can be methadone or Suboxone. It really depends on what's clinically. There's people who go to the OTP clinic for Suboxone and get more frequent dosing because they have a history of, like, for instance, they might say, somebody stole my meds, or they come back to the clinic and the meds have run out or old. So the person being where they go. So if they're not reliable in terms of following the prescription, we ask that they go.
The reliability of the people taking methadone, is that greater? I mean, I think you, 14 or 18% no shows, or I guess I was just wondering if people who get methadone have a higher.
Well, again, it depends because they are more severe users. So and a lot of times corresponding with that, I use is kind of disorganization for functioning and so forth. So I wouldn't necessarily say they're more reliable. It goes on an individual basis. Some of them are very much coming on a regular basis, very regimented, and coming when they should, and others are not as consistent.
Thank you. Ms. Curran.
So we still have a wait list of 46 people. What are we doing to get rid of that? Make sure that people are getting appointments.
Well, we have started the bulletin board on the county website. Right now, we have 2, possibly 3 other agencies, programs that are willing to give the report. So the plan is to be able to update that every Monday. We send out an email on Fridays, hoping to get the data so we
And are we like giving them a list of providers' names they can call besides ours? And then do we check back in with them to see if they're still actively waiting for us at an interval? What is that?
I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the interval is. It's my program director that does that. For the mental health clinic. With the exception of giving out the information for the other clinics that would be.
So do we have a policy for how often we check back in to see if people are still waiting to be seen?
I don't know if we do.
We should probably have a policy.
Mr. Terminelli and then Mr. Akers.
Thank you. I just have 2 questions to clarify. Of the 46 that are on the wait list, do you know the breakdown of how many have, because I know you've explained it before, that if they have an appointment that's so many days out, they're considered a wait list person, even if they have a scheduled appointment. Do you know the breakdown of the 46? How many actually have an appointment and how many are literally on a wait list?
The ones that are in the addictions clinic that are on the wait list, they have appointments. These 5 would be scheduled out more than 5 days, and that's the OASIS standard for. Really, it just has to do with the addictions clinic.
Okay, and so the 41 for mental health, then those people do not have appointments. They're on like literally a wait list. Okay, and then my other, just a clarifying question, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. For the 18.7% at the OTP that are no shows, are those clinics or are those clients given a scheduled time for their appointment? Like just like, let's say I have a 2 o'clock appointment. What if I don't show up at 2 o'clock and I show up at 5 o'clock, or I know you're not up and that late, but 4 o'clock? Would that be considered in this no-show rate, or because I showed up on the day to get my dose? I'm just wondering if the 18.7, if those are people that just never showed up on that day, or if they show up late, if that goes in the system as a no-show.
So this number has to do with both the dosing and making their counseling. So we can separate those out. So, a lot of them are more vigilant about hitting their dose, but aren't as to their counseling group. We dose from 7 in the morning till noon. For instance, today we had some that showed up at 12:30 with the machine and still accommodated them. But there is a cutoff point. If somebody comes at 2 in the afternoon, we've already closed.
Mr. Akers.
So the community bulletin board, how long has it been on the county site? So we're just hearing about it now, is that correct? Mike? Has anyone else heard that we've had this site up? Is that true? It's been on there a month, but we don't know, right?
Yeah, I think it has been a month. Yeah. It's just, we're hoping to get more investment from the other providers.
We have two now, right?
We have two, possibly three.
So I think that it's time for an interview, which should be live now. We advertise to the public that this site is available. And that somebody who has a relative or anybody else is addicted to drugs, that there's a form of like anonymous reach out to actually do a service rather than showing up or calling and talking to somebody. We need to expand this knowledge of that we have this bulletin board for the public to see. And I think that you'll have more buy-in from the other 9 entities that are providing mental health services. So, this has been a long process. So I'm actually astounded that we had it going for long. So I think we need to do a public outreach here. Let's get this thing advertised. We're going into the holidays. It'll be a crisis time for many. Let's get this thing out there. Let's let the public know that we have this available. So they can reach out not just to the county or maybe these 2 entities, and hopefully these other 7 to 9 entities will say, hey, we better get on the stick because we're going to be losing customers to these other 2.
I mean, one thing, I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know, we want to work with IT to get like a link that we can use for advertisements, so we don't say, get on the county website and choose community. We want something that's there. But there's gonna be a link that we can advertise for. So, because it's a little cumbersome, finding a county website, finding where the community service.
We're not there yet. But that's the way, if we do a public notification, if we have this, the link will be right there.
That's
Okay,
what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, that works
In
great.
progress.
So how much longer for that? We've got 41 people that are wait list, 5 addicted.
I mean, it really depends. I've had conversations with, I just gotta follow back.
Just kidding. Fair enough. Let's get Rick Johnson.
We can put a banner at the top of the homepage, so we'll see. That can happen.
It's important to get this done. And we've talked about this for almost 3 months.
Mr. Schneider, you're all set? Ms. Haggard.
I was just gonna make a comment. It is 3 layers in, but it's easy to find. Because I was aware that it was there. After you go to the St. Lawrence County, in the interim, if people are looking for this, go to St. Lawrence County Government website, click on departments, go to community services, and it's right under the headline of community services and divided by mental health agencies and, addiction agencies, and there's a I guess you call it a hyperlink. You can click on the phone number and it dials it from the smart. Thank you.
Mr. Ganesha? No? Anybody else? Mr. Sheridan?
Yeah, Jay, you talk about a lot of habitual people not showing up, so forth. What would be an example of the consequence for that individual who never shows up on time, is always late, just isn't with the program? Or is it the nature of what we're dealing with is not to get into too many possible consequences?
Well, and there's something called a SOTA, which is the state opioid treatment advisor. So if someone's going through the OTP, in order for us to discharge, for whatever reason, could be that they're not showing, could be they're disruptive, could be a lot of different reasons. We have to go through, which is a branch of OASIS, SOTA, in order to get approval to try to reschedule that individual with another provider. But in terms of if people come for their dosing or their medication appointments, but they don't come from their counseling, Oasis would not allow us to impose consequences. We would still be asked to continue to provide the medication regardless of whether they're attending other parts or portions of our services.
Mr. Burke.
There's at least one of the community providers that has facilitated telehealth for prescribers. There may be more, but there's one that I'm aware of. I guess I'm wondering, Jay, is there anything that as an organization we could do? I mean, we don't want there to be wait lists. Yeah, we don't want people to work from home. And I'm wondering if there's any of the two of them. I can tell you for me, I'd have people work from home at 46 weeks. It's better than not being seen. So I guess I'm wondering if there's anything that we can do as an organization to facilitate getting a prescriber or counselors that we're not currently doing that might help the situation in addition to posting it on the bulletin board.
Well, I mean, yeah, but a lot of the other providers, I mean, some of them give sign-on bonuses. Quite a few of them allow their staff to work from home, at least a portion of their time. Some of them may be required to come in once. Not 100% pretty in terms of what that ratio is. Some of them predominantly. So, that would probably make us money. And that's really the reason why we're down we're down 2 clinicians. Right now, we have 3. We did hire one who accepted and then later declined. She opted for same decisions. If that wouldn't have happened, then we would be down to 0 on the papers. But she eventually fine. We're still at the same spot.
This is wondering, go ahead. Shouldn't that be our priority? Shouldn't our priority get the resources you need to be able to see the people that are on the wait list? Like, it's more of a rhetorical question. It's not to put you on the spot, Jay, but to me, it would seem that we have to fix the human resource and if that doesn't do it, I think the community bulletin board is always a good option.
Anyone else? Ms. Curran.
Are we sure that there's not spots in the community that people could be seeing? Like when we talk to other agencies, and we ask them how many openings they have in the next week that they could take a new patient, what do they tell us?
Well, recently, I believe Citizen Advocates in Messina, that they could probably see people within 5 days. The B-Hub, I believe, still has capacity. And then the rest is further.
So do we say to people, listen, we really want you to be taken care of, and we understand that you called us, but there are appointments this week that you could be seen someplace else. And we appreciate your faith in us. However, this is probably quicker and safer for you to be seen, evaluated.
Yeah, I mean, we just got that information today from Citizen Advocates, so to my knowledge, we haven't informed the front desk of that, made that part of, their habit, I guess you'd say, in terms of. But I mean, again, I think there's some people that would prefer to stay at the same house that they had previously. I think sometimes transportation is a barrier. Ways.
Well, they would be closer to the scene. So then are we gonna start having that kind of scripted conversation with people to let them know that there's these care possibilities
You
sooner?
can do that.
I think it's the spirit, if not some of this actual written part of resolution that we passed directing people to figure out ways to get these people off the wait list.
Wow. One question, Jag, regarding the wait list, in 41 mental health folks that are on the wait list. How many of them are brand new patients?
That I don't.
But are there, is there a separation there? Are there new patients and current patients?
I'm sure.
Okay, so how would a current patient get on a wait list? I mean, would that person be on a wait list if they had their next appointment 2 weeks in the future? Would that put them on a wait list?
That's a good question. I mean, how do you define a wait list?
Yeah.
Because some people say we don't have a wait list, but then if you try to get an appointment, they're booking you out 2 or 3 months.
So I guess what
Into the future. So
my trust is trying to find out how many people are first-time people that are in need of help on the wait list.
yeah,
Can we get that? Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Hacker?
Thank you. Just a very quick question. Is Miss Best the person that is in charge of updating this? She's the, yeah,
she's the one who was trained on the website.
okay. She didn't develop it herself. She did.
Yeah, I explained to her what we wanted on there in terms of, all the different providers and separate, the data points and separated OH and Oasis services.
But is she the one that has to maintain it? That's what I'm trying to say, because she has other responsibilities.
Yes.
She does maintain it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, Jay, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. You have something else? Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So
It saved me from doing it.
we have a resolution going to finance committee, the yearly resolution for us, and that is authorizing the sheriff's providers. Mr. Lightfoot asked for kind of a summary of who those providers are, what services they provide, and how much money they're getting. So we put that together.
I need your email as well.
And here's my issue, is that we have a sheet of paper with 25 entities on it and dollar amounts that add up to almost $5 million. I think that if we're going to approve $5 million worth of expenditures to this group, we ought to know what they're going for. So it'll be out there for your perusal. Okay, and I thank Jay for putting that together. You know, it's a small task. Thanks again. Okay, next up would be Mr. Sieber from Social Services proclaiming the month of January as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Dimmish.
Good evening, everybody. The Office of Family and Children Services is putting forth an initiative dealing with the issue of human trafficking for the month of January. I think it's very important that we align with them in this issue. In the month of October, through various contacts with the department, 30 individuals were identified that were at least at risk factor of having been human trafficked in St. Lawrence County. So I feel very strongly that this is something that we should recognize, that we should bring some, shed some light on and bring some public attention to. So I'm asking that you pass this resolution for us to proclaim the month of January National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. Mr. Turner.
I'd like to be.
So any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Here. So it's the time for the statistical information.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before I get to the statistics, I have a couple announcements I'd like to make. The first one has to do with something that happened over the weekend. A couple our service recipients out in Star Lake, a couple elderly individuals received some texts claiming to be from the Department of Social Services, basically trying to get their personal information. Unfortunately, these two people that we are aware of responded to it, gave up their information regarding the benefit card and the PIN numbers. So we were able to work with them. They didn't lose anything. We got the new cards, got their numbers reset. However, I would like to shed some light on the fact that these texts are going out there. The department will never send texts regarding our information, so I would like that made public as much as possible. It is going around. There are other people that have received this. Yeah.
Okay.
Have we made any effort to make the press aware of that? To have it posted on North Country now, because there are a lot of, not just elderly people, but anybody might fall for that.
It just came to light today, ma'am, so that is on my agenda.
Thank you.
What else? Go ahead.
Okay, also, I would like to announce, and I know Ms. Rain is going to get to this after I cover my statistics I'd like to talk to you about, but I'm really pleased to say that we've already had this month 4 adoptions and 2 more scheduled this month. One of whom is a young lady that was in foster care for 5.5 years. That we have been able to move on towards a permanent forever home, and I am very pleased with the efforts of our staff and of our legal staff to move that through the courts and get that done. So anyway, that's all my happy news for the day. Let me move on to the statistics. So as you know, I've been tracking since I got here the three metrics regarding our child protective services unit. I have for you now the October statistics. Last month we only had September. The state is a little bit behind on getting this data out here. But as you can see, for the first time, we are now well below the state average. Percentage of workers with more than 15 CPS investigations. We're about 4.3% points below the state average. So I'm very pleased with that. We are continuing to work hard to keep those caseloads down. We're doing that by moving the overdue investigations out and making sure that the current investigations are being completed and move forward in a timely manner. So I want to commend our children's services staff for the hard work they're doing there. Everything is trending in the right direction. I'm very pleased with the progress that they have made so far. If there are no questions on that slide, I'd like to move on to the next one.
No questions.
All right. The next one is the percentage of overdue investigations. We still have some work to do there, but as you see, we are continuing to trend in the right direction. When I started tracking this, the trend line was actually going in the wrong direction. So we've got that turned around. It is moving in the right direction. The majority of our overdue investigations have been closed. The ones that are remaining are the more complex cases that are going to take some time. Some of them held up based on the courts, not through things that we are doing. So we're doing what we can to move those forward. But again, our staff are working hard, and I would like to commend the children's services staff for continuing to move in the right direction. Keep us going there. And the last one is one I'm extremely proud of. We are still at 99% timely safety assessments. However, I would like to point out we had a meeting with our state representative from OCFS, and there is some concern that they may have some errors on their end. We may be at 100% now. We're trying to track down that one that they say we missed. Our records say that it was done on time, so I'm hoping that 1% is found and we can finally meet that goal and then stay there. So again, we are 99% for our on-time safety assessments for the third month in a row. Fourth time in 5 months. I'm extremely proud of that work, and you guys are doing the enormous job over there in Children's Services. This is part of our effort to make sure that the people that need our assistance the most are going to receive it. I think we're making progress, not just on the child protective side, but on the foster care side, as evidenced by the number of adoptions that have gone through, and Ms. Rand can speak to that when she does her statistics. But if anybody has any questions for me, I will turn it over to her with your approval, sir. Any questions? Go ahead.
And keeping in line with the more abbreviated services data presentation that I did last month, I'm just going to highlight a couple of more significant changes on your data report. So on the very first page, I'll just note that 15% of the reports were indicated for the month of November. Something that we've been talking about for the last several months is a trend downwards to 10%, and last month was even 5%. So in talking about the severity and the complexity of some of the child protective referrals, this specific statistic demonstrates the actual seriousness of some of the cases that we've been receiving. What it means is that 19 out of 129 cases that were closed were found to have evidence to a fair preponderance, which meets the evidentiary standards for an indication of abuse and neglect, as well as for fair hearing or court statutory requirements. After inadequate guardianship, the most prevalent allegation remains parent drug and alcohol issues. Currently, the agency is collaborating with other departments of social services to develop a more integrated alcohol and substance abuse program for parents and families of those that are involved with children's services. On page 2, I'll highlight that again, the average CPS caseload remains at 12, which is the New York State Office of Children and Family Services recommends a maximum of 15 investigations per worker, so we're still meeting that standard. A challenge that we had for a very long time was the number of total cases open in child protective services, which over the summer was over 600. This last quarter, we've been able to maintain below 400 for the average number of child protective investigations open. Moving on to our foster care and preventive services, we were able to reduce the number of children in care in November from 259 to 257. There has been question in the past regarding the number of youth that are placed in fostering futures foster homes. So currently we have 96 youth that are placed in fostering futures homes. We have 143 that are in both the department certified homes, other agencies, or residential placements. Of the 257 youth that are in care, 123 are placed with relatives. So that leaves 134 that are placed in non-relative or residential care. Last month, we talked about the average number of days in care being something that we are concerned about that continues to trend slightly upward each month. So internally, we will be creating a task group that will take a look at breaking down and a more comprehensive look at those specific youth and potential reasons why they remain in care and possible solutions or resources that we may be able to make available to those youth to move them to permanency, whatever that may be for that youth. So continuing with our foster care, preventive, and adoption statistics, we had we had 8 homes that were lost for the month of November. So sometimes when a youth is adopted, the relative home may close because permanency has been established. So we are looking at continuing to recruit foster homes. Our next informational meeting for the department is December 14th. from 1 to 3 and also 5 to 7, right at the Department of Social Services building on Judson Street here in Canton. On a positive note, the agency has seen a slight increase in the number of youth that we're providing in-home services to after several months of declining numbers. This is critical because the agency strives to be able to provide those home-based services aimed at reducing risk and preventing those out-of-home placements. Regarding adoption activity, Commissioner had mentioned, we had 6 adoptions for the month of November. And a challenge that we are facing are the number of youth that are being placed in the residential settings. So typically what you have seen from us is 5 and 6% for the number of youth in residential placements. This month, we're up to 7% or 18 youth, which is 2 additional youth in residential placement. These youth are not able to continue continuity in the community because no residential programs in St. Lawrence County. Therefore, they are typically placed quite a ways away from family, friends, and visitation can also be difficult. So the agency remains diligent in ensuring these youth are stepped down and returned to the community or their home as quickly as possible. The agency has seen a slight increase in the homeless numbers as might be expected with the colder temperatures. There were 68 new homeless placements for the month of November. That's slightly over 2 per day. The agency continues to collaborate with community providers, and I believe that they are attending a meeting this week with community providers in the Ardensburg area. An update on positions as of today, there are 4 vacancies in our foster care preventive unit and 2 in child protective. We have 1 foster care preventive worker that will be starting tomorrow. However, that is not included in our 6 caseworker vacancies. We continue to have 1 homemaker or visitation monitor vacancy. As we receive applications, we complete interviews and hope that we will have that position filled soon. The most recent 2 caseworkers that left, was not they were with us for about 10 months. One stated that it was just not the right fit, and the other left for similar benefits, but with remote work option. Looking at child support, the agency filed 5 more petitions for the month of November for child support enforcement, and collected approximately 870, slightly over 870,000 in collections for St. Lawrence residents. In regards to the eligibility programs, there are no drastic changes in the numbers for any of these programs, and I was actually going to mention the dam that Commissioner mentioned, so I will only add that it was reported the number that's coming up on the text is a 1888 number. So that information hopefully will go out and people can be aware. I hate to see any more victims.
Questions or comments? Mr. Forsyth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where are the homes? These 68? Are they spread throughout the county? Are they concentrated?
So the majority of folks that come in or call on call, a lot of it happens after call, especially during code blue. They're required to be placed with the temperatures. So your more populated areas, between the Ogdensburg, up north, but they're throughout the county. I don't have the actual breakdown.
Is there enough space to accommodate? To find, when it's real cold, find places for shelter and warmth, and is there enough space to accommodate?
I think it's a challenge, and I think it's increasingly more of a challenge. Today we're working on cases at the very end of the day and calling all of the different hotels that we typically work with. There was no availability. So.
And what else? Mr. Burke.
Heather, foster care, is there a difference in the local share for our foster care versus the children's home foster care? In other words, the amount that our taxpayers pay for one versus the other.
Sure, so foster care rates are set by the state. However, in addition to what we call a pass-through, which is the amount that the foster parent is reimbursed for the room and board, there is an administrative fee per day attached to each youth that's placed in a fostering futures or any voluntary agency foster home.
And there's a county share to that. That increase, there's a county share.
So there are many different variables that come into play regarding funding. And for example, is the youth board eligible? What sorts of funding sources are attached to that particular youth? And then whether or not we have gone through the foster care block grant, for example. So that could vary, but yes, I believe at the end of the year, there's always a county cost associated with foster care and foster care placements.
And it's cheaper for us taxpayers, St. Lawrence County, to have our own supervision or administration of foster care versus the contract. Is that accurate? Or?
So with the youth that are placed in the Department of Social Services foster homes, our staff, our caseworkers, are the frontline staff that respond to any issues that happen both within the foster home as well as with the children that are in the home, in families. When a case is associated or a child is placed in a home of a voluntary agency, for example, their staff may they do contacts, they do visitation. You'll see that one of the grids, we talk about the number of hours, for example, that fostering futures does. So they do certain services that are associated with that youth being in their program. So it would need to be considered the staff that it would take to replace those services that are being provided.
If I could ask the question about kinship. When they're in a kinship home, they're still getting the same amount of subsidy as they would. And the institutional care is what's our local portion of the cost of that ballpark?
I don't have the answer to that one. I would have to.
And once they're adopted, is there any additional money that's given to those children? To the families who've adopted those children?
Sure. So not every child receives what's called an adoption subsidy. However, most do. So a child that has, for example, been in care for over 12 months or may have a qualifying condition would be eligible for a subsidy. So that same amount that the foster parent was receiving for room and board would become an adoption subsidy following the adoption.
Who pays for that? Who pays for that adoption?
Again, there's reimbursement through the state and maybe even a portion through the federal government, depending on if that child again is what their eligibility is for those different programs.
And would we pay a portion of that as well? Local?
Yes, I would think so.
Thanks, Heather.
What else? Mr. Sheridan.
Heather, do you have records like the last 5 years of the number of homeless people you have for the year?
I believe when we were doing some research to start creating this data, it was probably determined that our records were not as precise in years past as we might have liked to be able to in some comparisons.
They started getting more precise what year, this last year? And maybe just starting to notice precise.
Well, I know we've gone back at least a year or two in comparing to demonstrate the increase, but there may be some hand records, like,
Yeah,
on the
I think we really should start keeping track of that. It seems like it's starting to be quite a concern with other counties around us across the whole state. So that we'd have something to go on in terms of trying to figure out what to do. Problem really gets, I mean, then we'll know when the problems are really getting out of hand, where there's something that the county has to do. Other than just know that they're out there. Sounds like you've got a handle on the ones now that we've got complaints on here. We're able to take care of the majority of them.
Well,
Yeah, a couple more pages. In looking at our supplemental nutrition assistance program, there were an additional 196 applications for the month of November. 545 compared to 349 from October. And when you look at the DCAP interim assistance reimbursements, you'll see a much larger amount for November of 2022. And this is associated with when an individual is awarded supplemental Social Security and the department is reimbursed a portion of that assistance, the worker, for the worker who has responded to and helped the individual through the process and to become eligible. On page 10, regarding child care payments, there was an increase from 60,772 from October to 86,086 for November. Again, this was the increase in the poverty rate from 200 to 300% that made more families eligible for that assistance. And looking at the home energy assistance program, we were notified this morning that effective date of December 11th, there will be an added supplement to folks who have already been deemed eligible for home energy assistance program, and that ranges from $50 to $150. The vouchers will be produced on March 5th and will be processed within a couple of weeks after that. This is for folks who have already been deemed eligible for HEAP. And for anyone from December 11th moving forward that is deemed eligible, that additional supplement will be added to their regular benefits.
Mr. Forsyth.
So that'll just be automatic?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Regarding Medicaid services, including personal care, I'm going to kind of summarize these last two pages by giving you a little bit of information from the New York State Department of Health that I think will be of interest to you. This week, the New York State Department of Health will be mailing out letters to Medicaid recipients across New York State that may be impacted with new 2023 Medicaid levels. The letters will advise those individuals that this impact will be positive. In fact, they may no longer be obligated to pay a monthly spend down to be fully eligible for Medicaid. The current income level used to determine Medicaid eligibility for an individual is 934, and for a couple, it's 1,367. Effective January 1st, 2023, the individual can now have a monthly income of 1,563. And the couple a level of 2,106. So this change will have a positive impact on those who are currently obligated to pay a monthly stipend for their Medicaid coverage. It will also make many more people in the community eligible for Medicaid and or Medicare savings plan. So Medicaid recipients who receive one of the two letters being mailed out will be directed to call their social welfare examiner at the Department of Social Services. When the examiner receives the call, they will rebudget the case and provide notice to the individual of any changes regarding their Medicaid coverage.
Would you give me the number for a couple?
So
I got the single.
Yep, so the new Medicaid couple amount is $2,106.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much. Same to you, Mr. Seaver, thank you. Now we'll move on to the county administrator. Vacancies? You're trying to hide them.
Okay, we have two departments on this agenda. The first is one position for community services. Okay. So there are, on this agenda and also on finance, you're going to see requests that the vacancy review committee took a look at that have already been included in the 2023 budget. So we took a look at this from two perspectives. One is the funding side, but also permission by the board to fill the position. And in past years, we've done both options. We've done it so that if it's in the budget, it automatically gets filled. But we're also saying in situations where vacancies come up that haven't been filled, they need to get the blessing of the board. And so the budget has now been adopted. So these positions are funded. It now is up to the vacancy review committee and the board to authorize their fill. And so that falls into this position and I believe one other one tonight. Okay.
All right, so this is a vacancy authorization requesting to create and fill the deputy director of community services. So the duties of this individual would be to maintain the single point of access, which is SPOA, which is a mandated service, for which we get state aid, that's both children and adults. Also, we have assisted outpatient treatment, that's court-ordered treatment for severely mentally ill individuals having somewhat history of non-compliance. In addition to that, we have the crisis intervention team. That's a rather new endeavor. We've been working with local law enforcement on, and that's trained so that they're better able to respond to the community. They are responding to a mental health situation to improve their knowledge and wherewithal to be able to handle that. OMH is rolling out a system of care that's kind of an evidence-based practice or program for children and youth. There's some communities that already have this on board. Opted to wait until after COVID, so to speak. So we could do more in-person types of meetings rather than get planning on rolling that out. There is the development of a law enforcement mental health referral system. This was originally created in Essex County, and it's something that quite a few counties are now mirroring that referral system. So it would be in a kind of like a tablet that is somebody, this officer responds, they would fill out the electronic referral form, and send, go to a designated provider, who would triage that and reach out and provide services. So there's also the threat assessment team, and that's coming from the governor's office to try to prevent either domestic terrorism or hate crimes within communities. So we're starting that program and also serve as the chair of the suicide awareness program. In addition, other duties would be a liaison between community providers and hospital systems. There's typically a gap a lot of times. People go to the hospital, trying to connect them to community-based services. This individual would be involved trying to work with other systems that the team, the person that's an AOT, working the prescriber for that. So really just trying to, facilitate networking so that there's not gaps in services. Assist in continuous development and field program services and operations. Or they're in line with regulations. Assist the community services director in preparation of service plans. Also, this would be for more high-level meetings, arrange, schedule, coordinate meetings, conferences, and then other tasks as directed, would act on the director's
Mr. Carson.
Okay. Jay, is this gonna be someone from within moving up, or do you think this will be an outside hire?
Well, I do know we have one person that is interested in likewise. So we will take this to the service process. And see who else.
Mr. Akers.
So it looks like the salary would be right around 80,000. Are you giving up a couple positions or is this an addition?
Well, we have a Medicaid services coordinator that we would not be filling at this time. So that would be the duties of this individual. Some of those duties would fall to this individual. And what is that? What's that other individual, the Medicaid person? What are they making salary? $70,600. So if you eliminate that person and compare this individual, $10,000.
Mr. Schmidt.
Jay, it seemed like you were saying that a lot of these responsibilities are new programs mandated by the state, but not funded by the state.
Well, we do get state aid for AOT and SPO coordination piece. There is some, like with the threat assessment team, there is some monies for the next several years, 2, maybe 3 years, approximately $170,000. But some of that's going to be going to training, developing the program, hiring consultants, things like that. System of care is not necessarily grant funded, but it's an OMH program, and they provide assistance. So the law enforcement referral system, there is no grant monies for that. The crisis intervention team, the initial consult, the training that we've gone through initially was grant funded, and most of that funding was offset either overtime, time for the officers to attend those trainings.
Anyone else? Mr. Burke.
Not related to this, Jay, but is there any update on the mobile unit?
Yeah, we did get some pictures recently, so it is on the production floor. Cab or the body is actually having chassis, so they are moving forward.
Anyone else? Thank you, Jay. Next, Mr. Schieber.
Hello again. Right, we have 4 vacancies tonight for the Department of Social Services. More here. The first one is a social welfare examiner position in our Medicaid unit. This person, when they did the position, they did so, they took a promotion to our support unit as a support investigator. So we are maintaining that person inside the department. This current position is vital right now, as you heard from this Randy earlier. There are some changes to Medicaid. There's going to be a lot more calls, a lot more processing coming through. This individual is going to be handling approximately 3,600 total cases, and all of those are existing cases, but we're gonna be having to rebudget a lot of those people. And also be processing new applications and working with some of our most complex caseloads as well. So I would ask for approval to fill this position. Any question? The second position I have for you is also a social welfare examiner, this time in our TA SNAP unit. This individual also decided to become a support investigator, so our support unit is happy and everybody else not so much. But we are keeping these people inside the department. Again, this position is going to be seeing a lot more work. We have a lot more applications coming through, particularly now that the coordinator is here. This position handles on average about 31 applications a month, but is maintaining a caseload with about 26 TA cases and 341 SNAP cases, serving over 600 of our citizens. There's a lot of work there, and it would be a lot to put onto somebody else, and I am asking your approval to fill this position. I would like to discuss the next two positions together. They are the administrative assistant and the secretary of the commissioner. Currently, I have an administrative assistant. Some time back, we hired a deputy commissioner, and we needed some clerical support for him. So the plan is to take the administrative assistant position currently assigned to my unit and move that over under the deputy commissioner and create a position in my area for the secretary to the commissioner. Doing so would be in line with other county departments. We have a secretary to the DA, a secretary to the county attorney, a secretary to the board of legislators. We have over 260 FTEs. That position handles a lot. There's a lot of confidential, high-level material that she deals with. Currently, the incumbent in that position handles a lot of the complaints that come through. About 85% of the complaints get handled before they ever make it anywhere. So I feel very strongly that that position, the secretary of the commissioner position, is necessary. The other position, the administrative assistant, we have plenty of work for them to do. One of the tasks that I've set the new deputy commissioner is to begin work in compliance, to start working on audits, to stay ahead of audits, to make sure that we are always ahead of the game. This position will provide, in addition to the clerical support on the eligibility side of the TA, SNAP, emergency shelter, family assistance programs, will also be working with us on the compliance side of things to help us prepare for audits and to compile the results of audits and the data to help us use that to keep us in the same, in a positive direction and not get back to where we've been in the past. So I feel very strongly that these two positions are extremely important. And I would ask your approval in filling them both.
Ms. Haggard and Mr. Forsythe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The person who I thought currently did this job, is she going somewhere?
No,
So-
well, I mean, we are moving her position over and then we are creating this other position, but it's not good.
Okay, that's good to know. So she's just going to report to the deputy.
Her position is, the plan would be her to stay reporting to me.
Okay, I got you now. Okay, I was just concerned about that.
Yes, that's
She's
nothing
a
that I-
great employee. Thank you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. Joe, I guess I never understand this all completely, but the two are reimbursable at 81%, but the same classification, social welfare examiner, one is at 68 and one is at 100. Why is?
Because one of them is reimbursable through Medicaid, and one of them is not. Medicaid's 100% reimbursable, the SNAP positions are lower.
So it's a little bit lower reimbursement.
Yes, for the type of program.
Okay.
Anyone else? Well said. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Now.
Rub it in.
I'd be happy to.
Go ahead.
So
County
first,
Administrator.
first item I have is a couple of transfer of funds to share with you. They both are as a result of the tandem billing that we were having between IMA and 1011. So that took some funds that you were authorizing a resolution for this evening that will be adopted in January. But we do need to pay the rent and we do need to pay funds associated with office operations at our satellite offices. So the first is for $850. This is to move over for mental health until the budget mod goes through for cleaning and trash removal. And the rent cost is $2,344 that was moved. So those bills can be paid. So those are the two transfers for this month. I wanted to let you know that our new buildings and grounds supervisor, Joe Brayshaw, is in place and getting up to speed. He has traveled to Messina to take a look at the backup 911 location. We had started a process to rekey that building. If the board is supportive of the public safety complex renovation project, we will be relocating our 911 operations there for the duration of the project. And so we really want to take an opportunity and ensure that that building is online with the generator reliably to rekey the building because we'll have a lot more traffic located there. Currently, if you don't recall, the Department of Motor Vehicles is there, Community Services and Probation operate out of that satellite location. So this will add the 911 dispatching operations as well. So took a look at that, also attended a meeting with our architect to go through the plans. We took an opportunity to make some adjustments to those plans before we go into finalization of the bid documents, which you will hear more about in January. Our hope is that we'll be able to keep to a schedule for those bids to go out on the street by February timeframe, so that we can begin construction if the board approves early spring. That would provide this time next year, all occupants would be in their new homes. So you'll be hearing more about that, but very happy to have a replacement for Pat Hans, who departed for a different position, to have someone to run point as the owner's rep on these projects as we finalize design. Just wanted to remind you of the schedule. We have finance next week. At the close of tonight's meeting, we will do some training with our HR director and our compliance risk manager, compliance officer on sexual harassment prevention and corporate compliance. We will have no meeting on the 26th as our offices, separate from the 24/7, 365 operations, will be closed the day after Christmas in recognition of the holiday. And the organizational meeting that you adopted is on January the 3rd. Wanted to let you know also that the Canton Human Services Initiative Board of Directors met for the fourth quarter meeting of the year. That also offered the opportunity for the Board of Directors officers to be elected. The slate of officers are continued from 2022 into 2023. And that is the president, Renee Cole. I serve as the vice president. Mike Haycock serves as the secretary treasurer. And for those of you who may not attach that board of directors to anything specific, that is the oversight entity for the Human Services Center. So the next meeting of that group will be in March of 2023. Last Friday, the Power Authority hosted an event as they roll through their Smart Path project to the next project, which is the Smart Path Connect. And that will be addressing the replacement of the wooden pole structures that often run alongside of the structures that they've spent the last 2 years replacing. So they hosted, they gave us a nice presentation so that folks are informed and able to ask questions in the forum. They also provided a tour for folks. I wanted to let you know tomorrow I will send you an updated rules of procedure. That rules of procedure will go to the Finance Committee meeting as it does every year. We're looking to update not only the dates and make everything flow for 2023, but also want to incorporate the language from the local law that you adopted earlier this year related to remote attendance at meetings of this body. So please take a look at those, read through them. I'll share them with our legislators elect so that if there's any questions, concerns, changes you'd like to make, you have advanced opportunity, the lengthy document, to bring those forward to our Finance Committee meeting. And then lastly, I wanted to let you know the COVID reporting. If you remember in July, I believe it was July 1st, we moved from a 2-day-a-week reporting to once a month. At the end of December, we will cease reporting on a monthly basis. So we will no longer provide reporting on COVID-19 after, so in January, we'll report on December, and then we'll be done reporting. Unless there's questions for me, that's all I have.
I do not see any. Okay. Moving along to committee reports. The Board of Health, Legislator Akers.
We meet tomorrow night.
Gotcha. CDP Board of Directors, Mr. Sheridan.
They have not met since our last report.
Community Services, Ms. Hackett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize, I'm losing my voice. We met on Tuesday, December 6th at the HSB. We had a presentation by the North Country Nicotine Consultants, and they're doing a program on all sorts of nicotine addiction. This is aimed primarily or exclusively at adults. They don't have one now for kids, but that is an issue. We discussed the Executive Order 18, which Jay alluded to earlier, where each county has to develop a task force aimed at preventing and responding to domestic terrorism and targeted hate crimes. We also took a look at the Community Services Appointment Bulletin Board, and the next time we meet is on January 3rd, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Denisha, the Office of the Aging Advisory Board.
Mr. Chair, we've not had a meeting since my last report, but I do want to take this opportunity to thank the legislators that contributed to the holiday gift boxes for home-delivered meal recipients. And if you haven't had an opportunity to donate, there's still time.
Thank you. Ms. Terminelli, the Youth Advisory Board.
So the Youth Advisory Board is now meeting on a quarterly basis, so our next meeting is January 3rd. But the Youth Committee continues to meet monthly. So this past Sunday, the 4th, we met at 4 o'clock. Most of them were in person. I attended virtually. And so they wrapped up their QPR training, which was question, persuade, respond. And Alexa and Jolene Munger became certified to be able to provide that training to the students so that when they go back to their home districts, they can recognize the signs of mental illness and distress in people that may be contemplating suicide so that they can ask questions, persuade, and then refer them to the proper services. So the kiddos went through their training the prior Sunday, so they handed out certificates for that. Revisited the suicide and sextortion awareness and prevention, that there'll be some training going out next month for those kids that would roll that out in their districts. So they're doing some public speaking training as well as training on the universal presentation. They viewed and voted on some different logos for their youth ambassadors flag that they're going to be creating. So some sweatshirts that all of the teen ambassadors will be wearing so that they can be recognized in their home districts as people that can be depended on, can guide them in the right direction. We also revisited the Gizmo project update, which is, it's a story for 3rd and 4th graders. So the teen ambassadors will be working with their local school districts to present these stories to the kids. And we've got this character that goes along with them, Gizmo. And again, that's for mental health awareness. Lead for Change, which is a book study and program where they adopt programs and then they recognize them through this organization. They considered that, and then just talked about some of the 2022-2023 programs and initiatives, some of them that are duplicative of every year, the Valentine cards that they've been working on, the holiday cards, the Remembering Everyone Deployed. So they've adopted a battalion. It's the Harlem Hellfighters Brigade. That's deployed in Kuwait right now and sending them some goodies and cards and all sorts of stuff. Being involved in the April Trash Dash, May presentation for reducing the stigma associated with mental illness. Some work with the St. Lawrence County Suicide Awareness Coalition. And these are the 8 that are the youth committee members that are representatives from our high schools. So I think that that's a pretty big deal that these kids are taking on such huge projects. And they continue, they write letters or editorial commentaries for the monthly newsletter. So just pretty amazing kiddos.
Thank you very much. Next is old or new business. Is there any old or new business? There is no old or new business. Moving to executive session for
Litigation, personnel, for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, negotiations, and appointments.
Is there a motion to go to the executive session by Mr. Smithers, seconded by Ms. Kern, all in favor? Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I would ask that unless there is negativity from the board, that the newly elected members remain with us for executive session. Opposed? All right.